What's up, Richard? Timbers here. Here is my Throwback segment, where I talk about the films that turns 10, 20, 30, and 40 this week. And we got some interesting ones and some not interesting ones. Turning 10 is Terminator Genisys. Of course, this was like the first Terminator film to come out since 2009's Terminator Salvation. And it was, of course, Arnold's return as a Terminator for the first time since Terminator 3. Let's be real. The best Terminator movie will always be Terminator 2. And Dark Fate actually wasn't so bad either. Genisys is probably the worst out of the franchise. I remember watching this one in theaters. Because this was actually the first Terminator movie I ever saw in theaters, believe it or not. I was like, oh, awesome. Let's get back to the world of Terminator. Hopefully, this is better than Salvation, Rise of the Machines, and all. This movie is awful. Yeah, maybe one of these days I'll do my ranking of the Terminator films, and this is definitely the worst out of the franchise. Dark Fate is probably my third favorite, really. But Genisys was just completely terrible. I like Emilia Clarke, but she was really phoning in here, too. Of course, you had, like, Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese, Jason Clarke as John Connor, but the whole movie pretty much follows Kyle Reese, played by Jai Courtney, who's of course a soldier in a post-apocalyptic war against Skynet, who is sent to 2029 to 1984 to prevent Sarah Connor's death here, and it's just not so good. Dark Fate is far better, especially since you got Linda Hamilton coming back in that, but other than that, yeah, Genisys was just not a good one. Alright, also turning 10 is Magic Mike XXL. Now, the first Magic Mike was much better than Hanging Tension's being. I remember seeing that first Magic Mike in theaters. I didn't have too much high hopes for this because it's male stripping, so yeah. But I actually quite enjoyed that first Magic Mike. Channing Tatum was pretty decent. Steven Spielberg did a good job. I admit, Magic Mike XXL, which actually also had Amber Heard, Micah Strahan, believe it or not, of all people, is also in this. But I admit, the movie isn't as good as the first Magic Mike. It's far better than the last one we just had with Salma Hayek. But it was still a pretty decent one here. Channing Tatum was pretty good. Of course, you had other folks like Matt Balmer, Kevin Nash, Amber Heard, Donna Glover. The late Stephen Twitch Boss was also in this. Andy McDowell, Jada Pinkett Smith. Definitely had some fun moments to it. It was pretty entertaining here. Now, I think this probably wasn't all that great because, it was decent, but again, it was a little step down because I think Steven Spielberg didn't come back, but he did come back with the last one, and that one was still terrible. But yeah, Magic Mike XXL wasn't so bad in my opinion. Again, it just wasn't as good as the first. All right, other films turning 10. We got the faith-based movie Faith of Our Father. Of course, it's the Christian movie from Perflix, who gave us movies like God's Not Dead and many others. It features the likes of Stephen Baldwin, David A.R. White, Candace Cameron Bure, who you might know as a DJ from Full House. Now, if you guys don't know much about the story here, it is set during the Vietnam War, where two young fathers report for duties, and decades later, their son meets for the first time before traveling to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. I actually remember watching this one in theaters back in 2015. Now, Christian movies are not I'm not always the biggest when it comes to Christian movies, but some of them could be interesting. And this is maybe one of the few Christian movies that I actually thought was pretty good. There was, of course, it is told mostly through flashbacks and stuff. And, of course, Stephen Baldwin was, pretty solid in this. It's a really decent one, worth giving it a go. I'll say give it a try if you guys haven't seen it. Alright. Now, probably the best film on this list, matter of fact, turning 10 is Amy. Now, Amy is a documentary about Amy Winehouse, and this actually did win the Oscar for Best Documentary. Well deserved there. Of course, Amy, does feature footage of Amy Winehouse before her tragic passing, and it's a really terrific one. Really shows like inside the depth of who Amy Winehouse was. You know, it is of course directed by Asif Kapadia, who did a really good job with this. It's actually also the first documentary movie that I saw in theaters that actually won Best Documentary at the Oscar. So cool there. But yeah, it's a really decent one worth giving a go. I mean, the biopic, that we just had was decent, but the documentary definitely is well worth a watch. All right. Films turning 20 this week. We got Rebound, the Martin Lawrence classic basketball movie, also featuring like Breckin Myers, Stephen Anthony Lawrence, Horatio Sands. It stars Martin Lawrence as like this disgraced college basketball coach who returns to his old middle school to coach the boys' basketball team. Rebound is not a great film, but definitely is pretty fun to check out. Martin Lawrence was great in this. Has some pretty fun humor to it. Definitely worth a watch. All right. Also turning 20 is the Darby Stallion. Now this is actually one of like Zac Efron's earliest roles. Before he became like this actually was released like a year before High School Musical. Made him a big star. And he also had the late Bill Cobbs, William R. Moore, Moses, and it stars Zac Efron, who plays Patrick, who meets and becomes friends with this Houston Jones, who's a horse trainer with a bad reputation, and he starts like training to compete in the Derby Cup. It is a really decent, heartfelt film worth giving a go. I mean, a year before Zac Efron, did music at High School Musical, he of course like a year before he hung out with Vanessa Hudgens with High School Musical. He pretty much befriended with a horse in this. And it is a really decent film worth giving a go. Really showcase on who Zac Efron will become down the line, and really shows him how great of an actor he even was before like High School Musical fame kicked in. And a really decent one worth giving a go. All right. Film celebrating their 30th anniversary, we got First Night. Of course, the film starred the likes of Sean Connery as King Arthur, Richard Gere as Lancelot, Julia Oman, Ben Cross, and it follows the rogue Lancelot's romance with Lady Camelot, while the land is drained by the Knight Meliant. Not a bad little film here. Of course, you had like Sean Connery, Richard Gere was pretty good in this. A really decent historical drama based on the Arthurian legend. It was even directed by Jerry Zucker, who is best known for doing movies like Airplane, Ghost, Top Secret. Very different role for like film for him here. A really decent one worth giving a go. Alright, also turning dirty is Species. Who remembers Species? Of course, you had like Natasha Henstridge. You had Mark Helgenberger, Sir Ben Kingsley, Michael Madsen. I mean, of course, directed by Roger Donaldson. And the film concerns a motley crew of like scientists and government agents who try to like track down Syl, played by Henstridge, a seductive extraterrestrial human hybrid. I remember watching this at a time when I was not supposed to be watching these type of films, and yeah, Species is definitely worth a watch. I mean, it is like very risque. One of the most productive, sci-fi movies you'll see of the '90s. Oh yeah, you also had like, you also had Forrest Whitaker in this. I forget he was in this. Sir. It's been a while since I've seen Species, but you don't have to bother with the sequel though. But the first Species definitely is well worth a watch. I wouldn't recommend watching this with like a close family member or something, but it's definitely an interesting one worth giving a go. I mean, it's so provocative. It's hard to really find an inappropriate dumb like picture for the thumbnail. So yeah. Oh boy, now for the 40-year one. This one I was waiting for. Turning 40 this week. One of the greatest movies of the 1980s. Back to the Future. Like seriously, one of the top tier favorite movies of all time. One of the most one of the most iconic films of all time. It's just so like unique. Of course, like Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, one of the most iconic characters of the 80s. Um, I mean, the whole premise of like him, almost hooking up with his mom is a little odd, but hey, the movie is still really this one. Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, one of the most iconic characters there is, too. Directed by Bob Zemeckis. I mean, what not to love about Back to the Future? It's just really excellent. It is iconic. One of the most iconic cars of all time is the DeLorean. Really killer soundtrack. I mean, oh boy, I cannot believe Back to the Future is 40 years old this week. I feel old, and I was not even born when this movie came out. But yeah, of course we did have Back to the Future 2, which is maybe even better than the first. I'm not too big with Part 3. I mean, Part 3 has its moments, but I never really enjoyed it as much as I did with Part 1 and 2. But still, Back to the Future is just so iconic. I mean, one of the most iconic time travel movies. Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd's chemistry is just great. If you guys never seen Back to the Future, do yourself a favor. Go watch it. It's very quotable, very entertaining. Well worth a go. And there are other films that turned 30. There's other films that turned 40 this week as well. We got Day of the Dead, which is the George A. Romero dirt installment of his Dead franchise, where like members at pretty much like members of a groups of survivors of a zombie apocalypse sheltering in a underground bunker in Florida here. And it's not as good as, let's say, Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead, but it is like very gruesome. I mean, some of the gruesome stuff in this, like very cool practical effects, is really cool. Of course, you had like some really cool cast members like Laurie Cardell, Jareth Conroy. There is some crazy gruesome stuff in this thing, and I believe that, yeah, Tom Savini actually did the effects in this. He did a great job here. I mean, definitely give Day of the Dead a go. Also turning 40 is The Admiral Forrest, directed by former Point Blank and Deliverance director John Borman. He also did like The Tailor of Panama, um, Excalibur. I mean, really cool director right there. This movie is, of course, an adventure drama that came out in 1985. You also had the likes of Meg Foster, Paris Booth, and it tells the story of this American boy who is kidnapped by an indigenous tribe in the American jungle, and it is based on a true story here. And I probably only watched this only once as a kid, and that was really it. It's not really too memorable, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, John Borman has put out some cool stuff. He's also put out some not so good stuff. Exorcist 2. His probably best movie he ever put out was Deliverance, but this was actually an okay one, say at least. Meg Foster was pretty good. Paris Booth, R.I.P. Paris Booth, he was great in this one. Really, this one, but let's be real. The best film that came out this week included a DeLorean. And I was watching like a documentary about Back to the Future. It is crazy to believe, by the way, that Michael J. Fox was originally not going to be Marty McFly. That was going to be played by Eric Stoltz. Can you imagine a world where we live in where Eric Stoltz is, I'm sure Eric Stoltz would have done great. He was great as Rocky Dennis and whatever, but did you ever imagine a world we live in where we had Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly and not Michael J. Fox? That's a world I probably don't know if I want to live in, but hey, things worked out good there. But that's pretty much it here. Let me let you guys, which of these films stand out to you the most? To me, the 10-year one is probably going to go to Amy. That is actually the better one in that 10-year list. The 20-year one, I'm going with Rebound. The 30-year one, I'm going to go with Species. And we already know the 40 one. That is obviously Back to the Future, one of the greatest films of the 80s. Anyway, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notification. This is Human Sign.